Alrighty, everybody. It is currently Friday, October 24th, 2025, and I'm coming at you live from a monastery on the mountaintop in Western China. Because today we're talking about Taoism. Now, Taoism, we're dealing with the same kind of situation as Buddhism here, where it's like, is it a religion? Is it a philosophy? And I think the answer to that is I think every religion can also be a philosophy, right? Like Christianity, I think has like a similar deal going on, where it's like America and a lot of like Western Europe and places like that, a lot of that, philosophy and understanding of the world, morally and just in every way, a lot of that comes from Christianity, but it's just so imbued in there, and no one really looks at it from that outside perspective like we do with, Taoism and Buddhism and all that stuff. So we don't really look at it from that perspective. So we don't understand that there is a philosophy of Christianity that I guess is secular, if that makes sense. Like the philosophy has been extracted from Christianity and applied to the secular context, you know. But we do look at that with like Buddhism and stuff like that because it's it's just you're looking at it from an outside view, so obviously you're like, oh, I can point out this and that or whatever. Whereas if you maybe asked some of these people, they're like, no, I don't know. This is just the way things are, right? It's a fish in water type situation where it's like, yeah, I've just lived in, this Western liberalism philosophy for as long as I've lived. So it just is the way it is. I don't think it has anything to do with Christianity when in reality it does, right? Same with like, Vietnam or well, these other places that are Buddhist, right? Where even the people who are like not religious there, or even the government, which may be non-religious, or there might not be a state-enforced religion, they might be like, no, we're not Buddhist. This is just the way we do things. When in reality, it's this philosophy has been taken out of Buddhism, slap it on just a secular political system, and now we got what we got, right? In Taoism, it's not really the same thing because Taoism is mostly a Chinese religion. And obviously the government of China, you're really gonna understand this later on. They're not following Taoism like at all. They're not even close. Really, I would say communism in a lot of ways is the opposite of Taoism. They're diametric, di- diametrically opposed, which yin and the yang, that's a big thing in Taoism. So I don't know, maybe the Taoists are like, this is the way it should be, dude. Everyone in the country should be Taoist, but then the government should be, communist, balancing it out. The two types of energies that we got going on. But before we get into the episode, because I got a fair amount of notes going on here, but I don't know how much I can expound upon them. One thing, when I opened up Spotify to record my episode today, it shows you immediately how many listens you've been getting, and someone must be bored as shit at fucking work today. Someone must be just grinding it out on a fucking Excel spreadsheet or something like that. Because there was just like, it goes up and down, right? Obviously, when you put up a new episode, it goes up. And by up, I mean it goes to like 5 people clicked on it. But whatever, I don't doesn't really bother me. And then it'll go down. But this one was just like, it was just like a spike, just like 10 or like 11 or whatever. A lot, like double the normal spike that was going on. And I even put out a new episode, dude. So yeah, someone must be really fucking bored at work to be listening to this fucking bullshit, dude. Someone just must have a boss beating down their fucking ass, dude, and a wife that won't stop bitching to them about shit. They're just like, I want to listen to this retard and just empty my mind of any fucking thought. Which, look, hey, we're talking about Taoism. Spoiler alert. It's a pretty big thing we got going on in Taoism. Is emptying your mind. Just every stereotype that you can think of about like Chinese, mysticism or religion or whatever. That's Taoism. All right. I it's not a smart idea for me to just boil down the entire subject into one thing, but yeah, you kind of got it down. Obviously, it's a little bit more complex than that, but we're not going to find all the complexities of Taoism in an hour of a retard talking into a mic. So, just Avatar: The Last Airbender, uh, Enter the Dragon. There you got it. That's Taoism right there. So we got a few listeners. or someone that's just listening like crazy. That's the thing that's been going on. And then gold. That's the other thing. I should have talked about this in current events, but like I said, I don't know. I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to squeeze out of my fucking shitty notes about Taoism. Um, but whatever. Uh, sorry. I was actually looking at an email about gold, and I tried to buy some gold online. If you don't know, gold went up a ton, and then there was a dip, and I knew that it was a dip and that it was gonna go back up. So I was like, "Fuck it, let's buy this gold." And so I bought some, and I used my debit card to buy it. And then after I bought it, it was like, all right, we're gonna have to run your debit card to see exactly what the fuck is going on here, and then we're gonna approve it, and then we'll ship the gold out to you, right? And so it was like, it's gonna take a one business day to do that, and I was like, it shouldn't take a business day to do that. Just charge the card and see if the money goes through, and if it goes through, then give me the fucking gold. It's a debit card, not a credit card. I can't. There's no possible way for me to like scam you on this. It's literally money coming directly out of my checking account. But I was like, fuck it, you got to do what you got to do. And it did that whole thing. And then it was like, you're going to have to wire us the money if you want this. And so I was like, all right, well, then I'll just wire you the money. And I don't know how to wire money. And so I was like, all right, yeah, then I'll wire you the money. And then, then I realized that I had to get a document signed or whatever. Um, but yeah, that was the whole goal, and I talked about it in the current events, but I did eventually get my gold. I bought it from a website called SD Bullion. I did end up having to pay a little bit higher of a price. It was only like $4 more though, so I'm not too upset about it. Doesn't really get to me too much. You know, I was already fine with spending, $750, so I might as well spend $760. But the gold is on the way, dude. The gold is coming to my parents' house. I'm pretty fucking hyped about that. I'm sure they're gonna be like, "Oh my god, you spent $800 on gold." And it's like, yeah, like I don't know if you guys have been like looking at the economy or really anything that's going on in this country, but me spending $800 on gold is it's just about as good as anything else I could spend $800 on, dude. It is not a great situation. That's not even like a month of rent, in like a decent apartment anywhere. I can't even get that for $800. So yeah, I bought the gold for $800. How about you get off my fucking ass, mom? Fuck you, mom. I'm going full anti-Taoism, dude. I am not going with the flow. I am screaming at my mom, and I'm doing everything I can to make as much money as humanly possible with my limited current monetary situation. But fuck it. Let's get into the Taoism. What exactly is going on here with Taoism? Are we doing yoga? No. All right. We might be doing a little bit of Tai Chi. I didn't really research that much into it, but I do think Tai Chi is a lot closer to this. So you're not going to be having to do gay ass yoga surrounded by a bunch of stinky Indians. You're going to be doing Taoism while surrounded by a bunch of fucking slippery, hairless Chinese dudes. So, or you're going to be doing Tai Chi surrounded by a bunch of slippery, hairless Chinese dudes. So, Taoism is a Chinese religion slash philosophy that emphasizes living in harmony with the Tao. We're going to be saying Tao a whole lot. I'm going to be saying Tao so much during this episode. I'm probably going to have like a stroke from saying it, right? It's like where if you just say a word over and over and over and over again, it just stops making sense in your brain. And you're just like, this is just like a sound. It's almost like one of those high thoughts that you have where you're like, the words are just sound and like people understand it, but some people don't. That type of thing that you get going on when you say a word over and over and over again. And that's what I'm going to get with Tao. Because, I mean, the religion's called Taoism, so I probably should have guessed that Tao was going to be heavily involved in it. But, you got shit like Islam or whatever. That's the name of the religion, but it's not like the most important thing to Islam is like Isla or whatever. Maybe it is. I don't fucking know. I've never heard of anything like that, though. With Christianity, you got Christ in there, but it's not the same. It's Christianity. You got that ch sound in there to break it up. So Christ and Christianity. You just don't get that same thing that you get with Taoism in here, And I guess in Taoism, that might just be like the Western name for it. I'm sure Chinese people have a different name where it's like it's the same with Buddhism, where it's like I think I think that's just like the Western name for it, although it might not be. So, but what is the Tao? So the Tao or Tao is the fundamental, unknowable principle that is the source of all existence. Once again, we're dealing with a Buddhism situation here where it's like, is it God? Is there a God? The things are not as clear as they could be, which, with the Chinese being as intellectual as they are, you think they'd clear this whole thing up a little bit. Ultimate conclusion, we don't really got a main God in this situation. It's a little bit more of like a Native American situation where it's like the spirit is just everywhere and it's in everything, which I think Buddhism has a little bit, but Taoism, they take it to the next level, right? Whereas Buddhism, you have a lot of different forms of Buddhism, and a lot of them have like different gods and local gods and things like that. Whereas this is just like kind of one spirit that like permeates all the things. I guess is the best way to describe it. Even though it's not really even a spirit, it's not like an entity. It's very, very confusing. So this first section we got is called "How Did We Get Here," which is the history of Taoism. I don't know, dude. There's a lot of puns you can make with Tao in the name, dude. And Tao is also a very Chinese name. It's one of the most Chinese sounding words. Tao, Tao. I can imagine a Chinese dude yelling it at you with like the most aggressive cadence ever. Tao. Very Chinese sounding. Maybe a little bit more Vietnamese, but I mean, China and Vietnam are right next to each other. Although the letters they use are very different. I think Vietnam uses almost like an Arabic type, like weird curly cursive thing, and then Chinese obviously has those symbols in it and shit. So I don't know how they came up with two just completely different fucking ways of doing things when they're right next to each other. I don't know, colonial, probably some bullshit like that. But how did we get here? Some scholars believe that Taoism started off as a series of master-disciple communities, which you hear that and you're thinking cult, which is probably pretty close to maybe what was going on here. But I do think, these are the Chinese here. They're honorable, not as honorable as the Japanese, but they're still an honorable enough people to where I don't think they had as much cult shit going on. Although I do think China, there is like a lot of cult shit going on in China right now, but I think that probably just comes from like the communist repression of religion to now where the pendulum might be swinging back a little bit hardcore where it's like, all right, I'm just going to go fully into this. I don't exactly know. Oh, goddamn, turned into RFK there for a second. But they think that this was just like a bunch of dudes, like I said in the beginning of the episode, chilling in a monastery on a mountaintop, and people will just come to them and learn from them, which I guess is kind of like, you could kind of view it as similar to like the apostles almost, where it's like, got this one central dude, Jesus tells them what to do, then they go out and they start their own churches and shit like that. Although at this point there's no like central Jesus figure, so I think it was just people, and obviously there was a religion that they had back then, so maybe that's what this is. Maybe it's a bunch of people who are like explaining the religion that existed in China then in kind of a similar way, and then rida bam bam, bada bam bam, snap those two Legos to pieces together, and we got Taoism. I think that's my best guess as to what they mean by this. And that makes sense to me. This is ancient times that we're dealing with here. Not super ancient, you know what I mean? Not around honestly the same time as Buddhism. Maybe a little bit before that, maybe a little bit later than that, but around the same time as Buddhism. So that kind of makes sense to me. But there is no central teacher here. Unlike Buddhism and Christianity and Islam and Judaism and just most of those other religions, we're not really dealing with a central figure here that's telling people exactly what to do. It's more of a figure it out yourself. That's kind of what Taoism is. So these early teachers taught about uh, apathetic meditation, or just like, I guess, an apathetic approach, which apathetic, if you don't know what it means, I don't know. I didn't know what it means either. It focuses on what isn't instead of what is to achieve union with the Tao. And already we're dealing with some fucking stereotypical Chinese dude with a beard and a hat on a mountaintop being like, you must focus on what isn't to find what truly is. Which, I mean, it makes sense, but dude, that's a lot of a fucking process of elimination. You know what I mean? That's a lot of shit that we're dealing with here. Um, and it's not, I don't think that's the approach to life in general. That's the approach to, figuring out the Tao. So, the thing that I heard it compared to was like, instead of being like God is good, God is, almighty, all of that shit, you be like, God isn't bad. God isn't, you know, a woman. Whatever. Whatever it is, you go, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. Basically process of elimination, and eventually you figure out what the Tao is. So that's apathetic. It's also called negative theology, which when I heard that, I was like, so these guys are like into demons or whatever. No, it's just focusing on the opposite of what the theology is to figure out what like the actual thing is. So that's a little bit weird, obviously. And this isn't even the most like Chinese mysticism shit that you're going to hear in this episode. We get some serious, you must do things and not do things at the same time to figure out how to do things while not doing them. We're going to be dealing with some shit like that. But this is Taoism, like I said. It is, you just boil down every stereotype you have in your head, and you got a pretty good idea of the practices of Taoism. Maybe not just everything about the religion itself, but how they outwardly express it. So, and then according to the West, modern Taoism arose from Laozi, who was a Chinese philosopher who lived around 500 BC. So this is about, I think Buddha, he was like 600 BC. Our boy Laozi, or Laozai, however the fuck you say his name, he's there around 500 BC. So he might have heard word, there's a fat Indian dude, or I think he might have been from Nepal, I don't remember. He's walking around India talking about, meditation and trees, and he's got a bunch of snails on his head and some shit like that. And Laozai might have been like, dude, sounds like a fucking good game plan. I think I'm gonna do about that, or I think I'm gonna do that shit. So maybe Laozai heard like rumblings about our boy Buddha, and he was like, I think I'm gonna copy that guy. Or maybe not copy him exactly, but we're going to be doing kind of the same thing where it's like sit cross-legged under a tree, and then you'll figure out what's going on with life. And this is pretty simple. It's not the exact same. They do focus on meditation, not as much, kind of, but not really. It's hard to explain. But anyway, that's what like the scholars and stuff say. They're like, dude, this boy Lao Jai, he pulled up and he was like, let's do this shit, dude. We're going full Taoist now. Let's figure this shit out. But the Taoists have a little bit of a different story of what's going on here. So Chinese Taoists say it was created by the yellow, not yarrow, all right? Because Chinese people don't talk like that. They would not say yarrow. They would say yellow. All right, because they're capable of speaking English, because they're equal to us and the exact same, and they're not different to us at all, so they wouldn't have a different accent, and they definitely wouldn't say yarrow. It was created by the Yellow Emperor, who was a king who wanted his subjects to live in peace and harmony. So we got two different stories here. I do like the Chinese story better. Fucking academia ruins all this bullshit. The Chinese Taoists, they were like, your emperor come down from mountain. He say, stop, do that. Don't do that, do this. Just be equal all time. That's what the Chinese said what was going on. And then these fucking dweebs from, wherever the fuck they're from were like, actually, it was a guy named Lao Zhai. And the no. Quit talk about Lao Zhai. He done the Yellow Emperor do that shit. You fuck. You white skin fuck. Big eye. Big eye. Big nose. Shut up. That's probably what the Chinese were saying when these fucking dweebs came around, and they were like, no, it was Lao Jai. I do like the Chinese story better. And it does, it kind of makes sense a little bit of this guy being like, and there was also this period in Chinese history, which is a very complicated subject, as is everything. But it was like called like the Warring States period or something like that. So I imagine all these different people were fighting, and then Yellow Emperor come down and he said, "Live in peace. Stop fighting. You must follow Tao." They were like, "What? What Tao mean? Tao mean what?" And he was like, "You must follow it." So I like their story a little bit better. And the Westerns, it's just kind of boring bullshit. It's like, oh, this philosopher kind of figured out a lot of the pieces to living a peaceful life. Eh, I don't know. It's a little bit boring to me. I like Yellow Emperor come down from mountaintop, teach Chinese how to live. But whatever story you want to go with, we end up in the same situation. I just like Yellow Emperor better as a story. So eventually, the original form of Taoism grew into two sects. We're not going to really talk about these too much, just because there's so much to figure out with the philosophy to begin with. But the two sects are Zheng Yi, which focuses on spells, and Quan Zhen, which focuses on inner alchemy. And a lot of this shit is connected pretty deeply to like Chinese folk beliefs and especially Chinese medicine. So a lot of the shit with Chinese medicine is like, I'm going to poke you in the ear and then that's going to help you shit or whatever. A lot of that stuff kind of comes into play with Taoism, where it's like it's all one big interconnected piece. We just got to figure out what piece to hit to like get things going the way we want to go, the way we want them to go. And I mean, both pretty sick options. I think I would choose Zhang Yi just because it's like I get the fucking wand out and I'm like doing all this shit, throwing spells and stuff. But Quan Zhen, that's like if I was sick, if I had cancer or something, I'd be going full Quan Zhen, you know. So we got two different options here that I think serve two different groups of people. You know, Zhang Yi, you're young, you're healthy, you want to go cast a fireball at somebody. Quan Zhen, you're a little bit more tired. You know, you got leukemia. It's stage 3, but you're also like 80 years old. So you're like, fuck it. I'm just gonna, you know, if the Quan Zhen works out for me, if I hit the Quan right, you know, I hit the Quan and I'm all good, then cool. But if I don't, then that's also cool. And obviously, both of these make sense. You know, casting spells and all that stuff makes sense, and the inner alchemy makes sense when you consider just like the interconnectedness of it all, where it's like if I can, you know, do this spell on myself, then that, you know, connects to everything around me and stuff like that. You know, or if I say these set of words, then I'm going to cast a spell on this dude that's over there because we're all, you know, connected by the Tao. Kinda, not really. it's it's weird. So Taoism drew on ideas from the religion of the Shang and Zhou dynasties, philosophers like Confucius, and the school of naturalists, which the school of naturalists, it actually was like kind of an official, maybe not fully academic thing, but like a group of people who were like, all right, let's figure this shit out. And the school of naturalists, they have a lot to do with traditional Chinese medicine and shit like that. And Confucius, dude. And this is when I like read Confucius when I was researching this episode, it reminded me of the funniest thing that I've ever seen in any movie ever. The movie is called Wanderlust, and the movie itself is it's just like a classic like feel good rom com I guess type movie. Maybe not like full rom com, maybe a little bit more. Maybe it's like a com rom where it's like mostly the comedy, but it's just like a feel good thing. And so Paul Rudd and Jennifer Aniston, the I think it was like the housing crisis happened and they were living in New York and they both like lost their jobs and they had to leave New York and they were driving down to meet Paul Rudd's brother in Atlanta. But when they were driving down there, they stopped at like this commune cult type of thing. And it's like classic commune, like hippie cult, like it's just free love and we smoke weed, man. And so they're staying there for a while. And Jennifer Aniston, who's married to Paul Rudd, ends up fucking one of the dudes there. But it was kind of a situation where it was like Paul Rudd wanted to fuck this one chick, and he was like, well, if we're doing the whole free love thing, then yeah, I have to give my wife a hall pass. But he didn't end up fucking that one chick. And so Paul Rudd is like super pissed at Jennifer Aniston. And so he goes and leaves and he goes to his brother who lives in like suburban Atlanta, right? Like classic McMansion fucking, you know, white Escalade in the driveway type shit. That's where his brother lives at. And his brother's played by Ken Marino. And if you don't know Ken Marino, you know him from something. He was in Wet Hot American Summer. He's Captain CJ in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, if you've ever seen that. And he's the funniest fucking dude in everything. and his brother's like the classic, or Ken Marino's like the classic, like suburban, kind of racist, cheats on his wife. His wife's an alcoholic douche. Like that's the situation they have going on there, and and so he's like Paul Rudd is there with just him and with Ken Marino, and Ken Marino's alcoholic suburban wife and all that shit, and they're outside grilling, and obviously Paul Rudd's miserable, and obviously the brother's like this suburban douche, and he's like, I figured out what Paul Rudd's fortune cookie fortune would say. When wife sleep with other guy, I have to stop. When wife sleep with other guy, you must leave wife because she no good anymore. Oh, on the pork fried rice. Fuck it. I did the quote wrong. God damn it. I forgot the entire point of the quote was Confucius say when wife sleep with other guy, you must leave wife because she no good anymore. Oh, and a pork fried rice. Okay. That's the quote. I explained it very poorly, but it's the funniest fucking thing to me in the entire world because Paul Rudd just like looks at him, because he's miserable because his wife slept with another guy, and he just looks at Ken Marino and he's like all pissed and stuff. And Ken Marino goes, "What? Look, I know it's offensive, but I'm not Chinese. It's funnier." It is funny to do a Chinese accent, dude, especially when you're not Chinese. It's fucking hilarious. And so I don't know. To me, that's like peak comedy is like Chinese accent. Oh, and the pork fried rice. Confucius said. I don't know. I found it fucking hilarious. The movie, it's not that good of a movie, but Ken Marino's fucking hilarious, and that scene's fucking hilarious. So, but Confucius also inspired Taoism. Confucius not just say pork fried rice, he also say do Taoism. And so he inspired Taoism along with the school of naturalists, who is just like, it's almost like the school of thought, where it's like maybe not like an official academic thing, and they're all chilling together at the University of Guangxingzhou or whatever, but they're like a group of people who are trying to figure out what the fuck is going on here. That's what the school of naturalist is, at least as I understand it. And the school of naturalists is responsible for bringing the yin and the yang as well as the five phases into Taoism. We're not going to talk about the five phases because that shit seemed complicated as fuck to me. It has to do with like your body and your spirit, I think, and shit like that. But we are going to talk kind of slightly about the yin and the yang. Everyone knows what it is, and there's a whole lot of bullshit that goes along with it. It's not just like a cool fucking thing that black dudes who want to be ninjas from New York do. It's a lot of shit. It's a lot of bullshit. And it connects with like the spirit realm and your body and all that stuff. Same with the five phases. But the school of naturalists is responsible for that. So I thought I'd throw that in there. The yin and the yang is the most famous thing from Taoism. So I feel like I had to give the boys a little bit of credit there. Confucius said. And then, so Tao about that. That's our next section here. We got Tao about that, which is the Tao Chings of Taoism. Look, dude, you can't expect me not to make the fucking puns. All right, they're literally fucking ripe for the taking, dude. They're the apple hanging on the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden. I have to make the Tao puns, and also Tao Ching's kind of sounds like a dude whose name is Tao Ching, which there probably is a Chinese dude out there whose name is Tao Ching, and he's like, oh, he gave me a shout out in this episode. That was a little bit more Japanese, but you know what I'm getting at here, dude. I'm pretty sure there's a guy out there named Tao Ching, and if you know Tao Ching, fucking give him a ring and tell him that a podcast who has 20 followers, that's another thing that happened. I lost a follower. I do want to give myself credit, and I think it might have been because in the last current events, I was like, fucking, I don't give a shit. I own you guys, whatever. Just like being an asshole. That was the kind of joke I was trying to make, and I was like, it would be funny though if I lost all my followers. So I am just gonna cope and desperately hold on to that and say that I lost that follower because he thought it was funny to unfollow me, which it is. It is very funny to me to lose 5% of my followers. But shout out my boy Tao Ching. Tao Ching. This guy's got 20 followers on Spotify. and he like randomly guessed your name one day or whatever. Or he made your name a pun. So we're going to talk about, I guess, the theology a little bit, maybe philosophy. I don't know exactly how to put it, but what is the Tao? We know that it is this sort of like universal spiritual existence type of thing. It's everywhere. It doesn't really have a plan. You don't really know exactly what it is, but it's everywhere. But Tao means way, path, doctrine, or line. So kind of self-explanatory there, and has four main characteristics. One, it is the source of all existence. Two, it is an unnameable mystery. Once again, very Chinese. Oh, you'll never know. Three, it is an all, what does that say? All pervading sacred presence. And four, it is the universe as cosmological process. Look, we don't need to know exactly what that means. We're just going to deal with the kind of the two main things. It's everywhere, it's sacred, and you're never going to find it. Okay? Or you're never going to exactly pin it down as it should be, because, and that kind of relates to the cosmological processes thing, where it's like it's constantly moving, it's changing, it's going this way, it's going that way. You're not going to be able to pin down Tao, dude. Tao is a slippery motherfucker. He's always changing it up a little bit. Not like in an asshole, like switching up on you type of way, but he's just, you can't hold him down. He's a free spirit, and he just does his own thing like that. So that's kind of who our boy Tao is. He's also the path. You got to listen to him, and that's kind of what makes him so complicated. You know, it's not like the Bible or the, Quran or whatever, where it's like, just do this shit and you'll make it up top. Tao, he's a little bit more complicated. You know what I mean? He's not just going to give you the answer. He's a tease. Tao might be a woman, just constantly changing his mind, going this way, going that way. You really want him. You say, Tao, I really want you, but I mean, you're constantly just doing all this other shit. So Tao is a woman, dude. God may not be a woman, but Tao might be, in my personal professional opinion. So, and once again, we got a few different types of Taoism. So Tao can either be part of everything, or everything can be a part of Tao. So, and this varies by belief system, obviously. And once again, we're dealing with some Chinese mystical spiritual bullshit where it's like, it's part of everything, or you are a part of it, which to me means we got everything, we're doing all this shit, and then Tao gets up in there. Versus the other school of thought, which is just everything kind of comes out of Tao, if that makes sense in a certain way. Which neither of those make too much sense to me. I was trying to wrap my head around it. But it's, at the end of the day, the difference isn't too great, because Tao is kind of the same in both of them. It's more so a difference in how you view, like, what Tao's doing, what he's doing, or like why he's doing what he's doing, if that makes sense, or like how we got here. How we got here, not really too important. We just need to figure out what Tao's doing and, follow that path. So this part isn't too important. I just wanted to include it. When you're trying to choose if you want to cast spells or do inner alchemy, you also have to consider, are you a part of Tao, or is Tao a part of you? Interesting question. It's a tough one to try and deal with mentally. I don't know. I guess just focus on doing spells or whatever, you know what I mean? Cast Stupio or whatever from Harry Potter, and then deal with that situation. So Tao is an organic order. It doesn't have a will or conscience, but it is infinite. It is an infinite and natural pattern. So once again, very different from like a god or a set of gods, where it's like Tao, it doesn't have like this big predetermined plan. It's like flowing around, like a snake or whatever, or a river cutting through the dirt, and you just kind of gotta go and follow that. He's like, if Tao sees a situation and he's like, we can't go through this situation, we're going to have to go around it, he's not going to try to go through that situation. He's going to be like, all right, we'll just flow around you and keep on going. That's kind of what Tao's doing. But he's not doing it consciously. So that's why he's kind of like a river, where it's like a river just flows. And it's, we obviously know science, the river flows because it's going downward, I think. It's trying to get to the fucking ocean. Okay, that's what the fucking river is trying to do. We know that, but the river doesn't know that. But the thing about Taoism and the Tao is that the Tao doesn't know exactly why it's doing what it's doing. It's just doing it. But we also do not know why Tao is doing what he's doing. So, Christianity, we'll compare it to that. God's got his plan, and God knows his plan, and we don't know it, but we follow him anyway. Tao doesn't really have a plan. He's doing what's right. Okay, that's all you need to know about Tao. But he doesn't really have an exact plan. So, but you still got to follow him anyway. I'd say that's how I describe the Tao and what he's doing. He's not thinking. He's not being like, we need to create a temple or whatever. He's just being like, I'm doing my own thing, going down this path. I'm going the right way. I know that much. Tao is doing the right thing, so I gotta follow Tao. All right, so although it is not conscious, Tao is seen as ultimately good and can be found in all things. Back to the Native American thing, the Great Spirit is everywhere, the animals and whatever are my brothers. That's kind of what Tao is. And he's ultimately, like I said, he's good. We don't know, and he doesn't even exactly know exactly what the fuck is going on here, what the next move is going to be, but he knows he's moving in the correct decision or the correct play or to the correct place, which I'm saying he here. Tao obviously isn't a dude or even like he's unknowable, right? So I feel like if you're gonna say he's unknowable, then I'm gonna have to come up with some word to describe him. So I'm just gonna say he. Obviously, he's not a he. He's not even an it or like a spirit or anything. He just is. All right, he just is. Um, so I just got to use he to fucking track the thoughts going through my mind, which already not a great situation, but now we're throwing on unknowable things that you have to fucking listen to, and it's frying my brain. All right. So, and now we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the fancy words we got going on in Taoism. So, Day or Te is the active expression of Tao and often refers to virtues one has gained by cultivating Tao. I thought Tao was a fucking just a thing. All right, I thought it was just like this thing that just exists and does its own thing. Now you're telling me you can cultivate it. I don't think they mean exactly that you're bringing more Tao up in you. I think it's that you're going a little bit more up into Tao. You're not getting penetrated by the Tao. You're penetrating the Tao. I think is what they mean by cultivating Tao. It's like you follow it and you just keep doing it and you don't know exactly what's going on, but along the way you're soaking up all this Tao, and then you get Day or Te, which is it's Day or Te. I'm just gonna say Te because I'm already saying Tao, so we're just going tease this episode, and you'll eventually get Te if you just chill with Tao. I mean, Chinese is the fucking stereotype that you think it is, dude. It is Tao and Te and Ding Dao Do and the Ching. It's all that shit. It's everything. The bears are who we thought they were. They are who we thought they were, all right? That's what Chinese is. It is the Qing and the Shang and the Tao and the this. No offense. It's the Zhao and the Shu. And then our next thing that we're dealing with here is Ziron, which that is a nice break from the Taos and the Te's and the Zhus and all that stuff. So Ziron is the natural state of all things. In order to achieve Ziron, you have to follow the natural flow of Tao. So Ziron, we can almost think of it as like nirvana with Buddhism, right? Where it's like nirvana is just like the ultimate state or heaven or something like that. But it's not like most Christians, the vast majority believe you got to die to go to heaven. Whereas with Ziron, it's like, dude, if you just meditate enough on like a big mountain while you have like your wispy beard and your fucking, Fu Manchu mustache and your rice hat on, then you can get to Ziron and just be like natural. You know what I mean? Just like part of like the universe almost, and not be, what the fuck was that noise? Whatever. And not be you know, fighting against the universe and all that stuff. You achieve Zeron, you're going to be part of the universe. Okay? You do that by getting with our boy Tao and, fucking with Tay and all that stuff. So Tao and Tay, I think you got to get to those guys, and then you'll get to Zeron, which Zeron, there's a lot of things that are already Zeron, right? Like a rock that's just sitting there. That guy's Zeron. All right, he's just following the natural order of things, doing what he needs to do. The river flowing, that bad boy right there. As long as there's no dams or, canals or anything, that guy's Zeron. And even if there is canals and stuff, that might also be Zeron. Don't ask me how, it just is. All right. So to do this, you must fast your mind, making it completely empty, and this can also activate chi, which you've heard of before for sure. So you got to empty your mind out, and not just in like a stop thinking of stuff type of way, or like think of this or whatever. You just got to stop thinking like altogether, and just also no action either at all. You just got to completely go like, hey, turn into the river, turn into the stone, just be. Which I don't know. I don't know how you do shit without exactly thinking about it. Maybe it's just like a temporary thing where you're like, all right, I'm gonna empty my mind real quick. I'm not gonna think, and then Tao, I'll get with Tao or Tao will get with me after I empty my mind, and then I'll just keep doing that shit. Get some Tay and Day along the way, and then I'll meet at Zeron, and then I'll be part of the natural order of things. I think maybe that's what fasting your mind is. It's like just stop thinking for a little bit, and then you can kind of think and like be like, all right, what does Tao want me to do? How do I get to Zeron? Tay, I need to get with Tay as well and figure this whole situation out. So if I had to guess, I'd say that's what fasting your mind means. But I could be completely fucking wrong. Who knows? All right. And now we're back to the classic Chinese words, dude. We were messing with Zeron for a little bit. Now we're back to classic Bing Bong Ping Chong. So, all right. Wu Wei is the main ethical concept in Taoism. Wu means lacking or without, and Wei means intention or action, or intentional action. Not action just as a whole, but like intentional, I'm doing this. So we're dealing with no intentional action. And that doesn't mean you don't do anything ever. It means you do what like the natural thing is, right? You do what Tao is telling you to do and you flow along with him. You don't try to fight Tao. You don't say, hey, Tao, I'm not dealing with your bullshit today. I'm not doing that. You flow with Tao and you're kind of doing what he's telling you to do. That's what Wu Wei is. It's not like completely being like, fuck it, I'm not doing anything, because that's not Tao, dude. Everything does something. The rock turns into sand, the pond, it dries up, or it fucking, has fish in it or whatever. Everything's doing something, but it's just doing it the natural way instead of, fighting against it, being like, I need to do this, I need to do this. No. Your boy Tao, he's trying to tell you to fucking do something. So you say, hey, Tao, what do I do, dude? Yo, Tao. It's like you're cheating on a test or whatever. And you're like, Tao, dude. Which, if you're cheating on a test and there's a dude named Tao in your class, listen to that motherfucker, because he's definitely Chinese. So you go, hey, Tao. Yo, Tao. And you're like kind of bumping him, and you're like, fucking, how do I do this shit, dude? It's fucking calculus, dude. I don't know how to do calculus, Tao. Tell me what to fucking do. That's what we're doing with Tao here. And he's not telling us what to do. He's just more so showing it. It's, once again, going back to the cheating on the test allegory, Tao's not going to be like, all right, and here you do this, and then here you do this. Tao's going to like kind of scoot his paper over a little bit, and like maybe you don't have the exact same problem that Tao has on his paper, because the teacher switched it up a little bit so you couldn't cheat as much, but you see how Tao is doing the math problem, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to take that thing, or I'm going to take the way Tao did his math problem and apply it to my math problem real quick. I think that's what Wu Wei is. But then we got some other fucking bullshit when it comes to Wu Wei, where I'm like, Tao, now you're just fucking with me, dude. All right, I kind of had enough of your ass. All right, so this refers to the letting go of egotistic concerns and is compared to water, which has a yielding nature and allows and flows around obstacles. Okay. So I guess that's the explanation for it. I think my cheating on the math test thing was pretty decent, but you can view it like a river as well. Once again, going back to the whole river thing, river's going where it's going. Doesn't know exactly why it's going there. It needs to go there because shit around there is like dependent on the river going there. So it needs to go there. It doesn't know that it needs to go there. It doesn't know why it's going there. It's just going there because that's where it fucking goes. All right. And that's what you need to do as well, according to Tao. It's like you don't fucking need to understand everything, dude. Not everything is for you. Okay? You just need to go where you're going and not even get to Tao. Obviously, you're trying to get to Xeron, which Xeron is just, it's the state of being kind of with Tao. You know what I mean? You're parallel with Tao. You're doing what Tao's doing. Tao's telling it, Tao's going this way, you're going this way. Tao zigs, you zag. Or you zig as well. You don't zag when Tao zigs, all right? You zig as well. My brain is fried. My brain is broken altogether. But look, dude, just let go of your ego. Be the fucking river. Go where the river's going. Bruce Lee might have been Taoist, because I remember there's a fucking quote from Bruce Lee where he's like, empty your mind. Be like water. Water can crash or it can flow. He said some shit like that. So he might have been a Taoist. Or he might have just been classic Chinese saying Chinese shit like that. So in Taoism, it is believed that the universe works in harmonious ways, and thus exerting your will against the universe may disrupt its harmony. Back to Christianity, God wants you to do shit a certain way. And if you're going around fucking shit up, all right, preventing people from doing things God's way, then you're making a big problem for everyone. That's kind of different because Taoism is like, it's like shit's going this way. All right, doesn't matter. No one fucking knows. Literally, no one knows why it's going this way, but it's going this way. And so you got to follow that. And if you are even like a pebble, going back to the whole river thing, if you're a pebble and you fall into the stream, you might not divert the flow of the stream that much. But like if you put 1,000,000 pebbles in that stream, then it's going to become a problem, or 1,000,000,000 pebbles, or whatever it is. So, while you on an individual level may not make that much of a difference when it comes to disrupting the harmony of Tao and, what he's doing in his path and all that stuff, we get 1,000,000 pebbles up in this stream, it may be a problem that, fucking everybody's going to have to deal with. It's going to cause a flood or whatever, and there's going to be too much Tao everywhere. Tao, he can flow. Tao's going to be flowing no matter what, but you don't want to disrupt that at all, okay? Because Tao, he's water. He might cause a flood or some shit like that. So, gotta follow him, all right? And in reference to this, our boy Lao Zai said, active things and you will, what the fuck does that say? Active things and you will gain them. Grasp for things and you will lose them. What the fuck? And you will, okay. Let me try to reread this quote. Active things and you will, I guess, lose them is maybe what I meant there. I don't fucking know what that says at all. Active things and you will lose them. Grasp for things and you will, what the fuck does that say? It looks like RAIN. Rain, maybe? I have zero clue what that says at all. Whatever. We're just going to skip that part of the sentence and we're just going to go to grasp for things and you will lose them. Therefore, the sage acts with, what? I can't even read my own handwriting. It has no, what the fuck? Okay. Basically, we're just going to focus on the other part of this. So, grasp for things and you will lose them. Therefore, the sage acts with, ration? What the fuck does that say? I literally, my handwriting is so bad. Okay. He lets go of things of grasping and has no loss. Okay, that's basically I'll just sum this up with the last sentence here. The wise sage lets go of grasping and has no loss. This non-action action is called wei wu wei. God, my handwriting is so fucking bad. It completely disrupted the flow. But wei wu wei is the action of non-action. It's basically just putting wu wei into action, of just like chilling there, figuring out what Tao's doing and then being like, all right, Tao, I'm going to follow you real quick. That's what Wei Wu Wei is. Um, I'll try to pull up the quote real quick to see if I can fucking find it, dude. Because I'm literally so fucking lost. My handwriting is so bad that I'm like, this could be like 10 different words right here, which maybe that's something I should do. That's something I should do on like tests and stuff like that, where it's like just make the handwriting so bad that they just can't fucking read it at all. All right. Where does it say this? Okay. Active things and you will ruin them. Okay, that's what it says. God, my W's look like A's, my R's look like N's. All right. Active things and you will ruin them. Grasp for things and you will lose them. Therefore, the sage acts with inaction and has no ruin. Lets go of grasping and has no loss. There you go. Don't be fucking out here grasping. Don't be out here fucking, taking too much action, especially if the action is against what the Tao is doing, and you'll be fine. All right. So, will isn't bad, but you must put your will in harmony with the natural flow of the universe. Just figure out exactly how Tao is doing that shit and then just copy off of him. So, and then we have Jing is your fundamental nature, which is the Tao expressing itself as a person. And this is connected with Jin, which is the consciousness, heart, or spirit of you. So Jing and Jin, we're not going to focus too much on that shit. So, and then Ming is the destiny or natural life force that is given to you by Tao. So Jing is Tao coming out in you, and then you got Jin, which is kind of you, and then you got Ming, which is more so your destiny, or I guess maybe the individual branch of Tao that's like driving through you and being like, you gotta go here, or like flow here. It's the river branching off and like carrying you to where you're supposed to go. That's kind of what Ming is. So yeah, you kind of are Tao, but you're also you. So you gotta listen to what Tao was saying, or else you're gonna be sore. You're gonna be pissed off. And then the Taoists believe that the body has three treasures: Jing, which is the essence or basis of vitality; Qi, which is that universal energy; and Shen, the capacity to connect with the subtle spiritual energy. So the universe is in constant change, caused by Qi, and the energy, which Qi is the energy that permeates everything. That's what Qi is. So when you see people like being like, I gotta unlock my Qi or whatever, they're allowing the energy of the universe, that Tao's pushing out there and all that stuff when he's flowing like a river. Qi is that, energy coming up in you. You breathe like a fucking dragon out of your mouth, and you do kung fu and you run on the wall and you pull out a sword. That's Qi, from my understanding. That's what Qi is. Qi is fucking running, is jumping 1,000 feet in the air like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, then running on the wall. So yeah, and then when we were talking a little bit earlier about inner alchemy, I think is them trying to figure out what's going on with our boys Qing and Qi and Sheng when it's up in your body and all that stuff. So that's kind of what inner alchemy and traditional Chinese medicine focuses on. And now we're on to the thing you've all been waiting for. The yin and the yang are principles or forces that are opposites, but they're complementary. They exist in mutual harmony and interdependence. And here's the other thing about the yin and the yang. There's like 5 different versions of it. There's like major yin, minor yin, yin yang, major yang, minor yang. So, and each of those correlates to like a different element or something like that. I'll see if I can find the list real quick. But it correlates to like earth, metal, like fire, shit like that. So, or like the elements, which that's kind of Avatar The Last Airbender type stuff. And so, god damn it, dude. How many times is the fucking... Okay, so yeah. We got the yin and the yang, like I said. We got the minor yang, all that bullshit. And it correlates to wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. So those are the I guess 5 ones. Obviously, Avatar: The Last Airbender was like, we're just gonna lump metal in there with earth real quick, and we're just gonna get rid of wood, and that one's gonna be air. So they didn't change too much about it. And I think in that show, I've seen it a couple times. They talk about like Jin and fucking all that bullshit in there. All right, this is our final note. According to Taoist thoughts, humans are a microcosm of the universe, and thus understanding oneself will lead to an understanding of the universe, dude. You're Tao. Tao is a part of you. Everyone's fucking Tao. So if you understand yourself, then you're going to be able to understand everything because yourself is just like kind of a smaller version of everything because Tao is up inside you. All right? Goddamn. All right, that's the end of this episode, guys. I hope you guys have a good day, a good week, a good year, a good life, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.